My guest is Cal Ripken Jr., first ballot baseball Hall of Famer, World Series champion, 19-time All-Star, two-time American League MVP. He played a record 2,632 consecutive games. He's back in a formal capacity with the Baltimore Orioles as part of David Rubenstein's ownership group. Cal, thanks so much for joining me on Sports Business Radio. How are you?
Very good. That sounds pretty daunting, the 2,632 games, when you think about it in hindsight. When I was going through it, it seemed like it was just you're going out and having a ball game each day, and it just kind of added up. But yeah, thank you for having me.
Let's start there then. You know, there's a lot of players now, load management. I've had elite athletes on this show, and they talk about availability being a skill. You did this better than anyone. What drove you to play 26-32?
You know, I think physically, the whole issue of load management, or how grueling that could be. It seems like the ideology now is to maybe an everyday player might get 145 or 150 games out of the 162, and you get 150 of the better games. But there's so many intangibles in the sport, and the playoffs can, as we've seen in history, that the playoffs can boil down to one game, whether you make the playoffs or not. And that one game could be in April, May, June, July, August. And the intangibles that a player can bring, besides getting hits and besides turning a double play, his experience, the way you respond in a pickoff situation or a bunt play situation, the eighth inning at Yankee Stadium, can determine the outcome of the game. And I always felt that even if I wasn't hitting, that I had something to give to the team each and every day. And in my day, the definition of an everyday player was every day. Eddie Murray was probably my living example right in front of me, is that he showed me the importance of being in there, every single day. And he showed me the importance of, in those crucial situations, how we can help impact the game. So Eddie was one of the better leaders by example that I've ever been around.
Looking back on it, would you have taken some time to, maybe sit during a slump and get yourself right? Or are you proud of the fact that you played the 26-32 no matter what?
Well, I'm certainly proud of it. And you got to put aside your individual slumps, even though in some ways I think I used to view that as a little bit selfish. I said, okay, I can get myself right. Let me take a 3-day vacation, and then I'll come back. But in the meantime, you're facing Roger Clemens, or you're facing somebody else in that. I think selfishly, if I wanted to preserve statistics, maybe I could say, God, I'm 0 for my last 15. We just played 15 innings last night. We got Roger Clemens in a day game in Boston. But today would be a pretty good day to take a day off. If I could handpick 8 or 10 guys that I didn't hit real well, and then and let somebody else worry about it. But I always thought that my responsibility was to come to the ballpark, put yourself in the hands of the manager and say, I'm here to play if you want me to. And the managers wanted me to. They created this thing called the streak. Now, after it got to a certain point, one could say that it was too big for the manager to make a decision anymore, which I always disagree with. But I always thought that my job, as simply as it was, is to come to the ballpark ready to play. And if that manager writes your name in the lineup, then you play.
You were born in Maryland. You were drafted by the Orioles. You were managed by your dad. You played with your brother. You played all 21 years with the Orioles. Now you've come full circle. You're back with the team as a co-owner. What does that feel like?
It's, I knew it was going to be pretty good. I was excited about it, the prospect of being part of the group. But it's better than I thought it was going to be. You feel a part, even though it's formally in a different capacity. I've always lived and breathed the Orioles. My dad was there. My childhood was watching the Orioles. My dad came to the big leagues. I got a chance to watch him at the big league level. And then I went away and played minor league baseball and got a chance to play there my whole career. So, early on in my retirement, there was some times when I was asked to interview for a managing job or something like that. And so some of the times I went a little bit down that road, but I could never see myself outside of the Orioles organization. So going back to the stadium now, I find myself as part of this ownership group. I'm engaged. I'm watching every pitch. I'm going to almost every game. It feels I'm recharged, inside. And I would say that it was the 20 years after I was out of baseball. I mean, it gave me an opportunity to go off in business, learn about business, try to meet some new challenges and experience a newer type career. But I think I always had a leg in to where the Orioles were. But now I got both feet in, my whole body's in, and I'm engaged, and it's fun.
So if you could map out your specific role with the Orioles, and they're in first place as we record this, they've got a great farm system, lots of success. What would you want your contributions to be as co-owner?
Well, it's interesting. I guess 10 years ago, if this would have happened, or I don't know, I'd have to go back and look at the exact point in history when the Orioles were going through a rebuilding process. Then you would have to say, okay, the baseball piece has to be fixed. The baseball piece does not have to be fixed. And as a matter of fact, you might want to take your hands all the way off of it. Mike Elias has done a really good job of peppering the whole organization with talent. He has a scouting background, has drafted really well, identified players from other organizations that fit, and he's built a really wonderful culture. So, I think my job is to watch and learn, ask questions, and be engaged, so that if Mike Elias is a sounding board or he wants to talk about something where I can help, then I'd gladly do that. From a business standpoint, I had 20 years in the business world, understand a little bit about marketing. I can be a tool in the process of getting the community back engaged. We're drawing pretty well. I think we're about 25,000 a game right now. Plenty of room for improvement on that. And maybe my role in the early parts is to help the business side, get back to where they were when we were drawing 3 million fans a year.
I know your dad was such a big influence on you on the field. Who taught you the business ropes? You just talked about learning business. Who kind of took you under their wing and said, Cal, this is how we do it on the business end?
Well, I mean, I had the good part about having success in a sport is that when you leave the sport and you're going into the business world, there are a lot of people willing to help you. I mean, I remember in the early days, we had my agent, Ron Shapiro, was part of an advisory board. Steve Bisciotti, the owner of the Ravens, sat on the advisory board and started channeled the resources. But there's no real substitution from actually learning on the job. I felt like I had spotted everybody 20 years ahead of me because I'm starting at 41, in the business world. But you put your time in, you learn, you make mistakes, you correct the mistakes, you make good hires, you make some bad hires, and then you kind of go through the process. And by engaging in it, you learn a whole lot along the way. It is interesting. I learned that I didn't spot everybody else 20 years because there was a lot of principles and values that you learn as a baseball player that can apply to your success in the business world. I always joke, could I evaluate a CFO if I'm hiring a CFO? Probably not. I need help with somebody to say, okay, here are the skill sets that are there. But I can look at them. I can see if I like them. Look at the work ethic. I can get a feel for them, and I can use my instinct to make a decision on that. But you do need help, and you need to build a team around you that has those abilities where they can advise you. So I think that was the strength in what we were able to accomplish in Ripken Baseball. And my brother Billy was in the same boat, so we could do that together. And our intentions were always good. I think in the beginning, I think we were a little too philanthropic about it. You could say, well, we can cover the cost for this, we can cover the cost for that, and you realize that it has to wash its own face in order for it to have any sort of staying power. And we were able to build a model that worked really well and was self-sustaining, which was really good. But I don't know if there was any secret formula. Just put your time in, listen, do it, and then and learn and grow from that.
I want to talk about Ripken Baseball and some of your other business ventures in a minute, but let me go back to on the field. Again, 2632, you showed up for work every day. I'm really interested in the process of the greats like yourself. When you came to the ballpark as a player each day, did you have a process and routine that you like to stick to?
I think we all learn that routine is our friend, because the pressure gets to you. The slumps are a part of the game. Your success rate is so low. Even if you have a great year, you're at 300, but you're still making 7 outs out of 10. And so you have to learn how to deal with all that. And I think to keep things even keel, don't get too high when you're hot, don't get too low when you're not. A routine can provide that stability. And so over the years, you might learn a little bit more about yourself, and then you start to substitute different things in your routine at different times of the year. I mean, in one of my better years, my best years, I think was 1991. I didn't take batting practice for the last 2 months. So, I mean, I was in such a good groove and such a good timing. All I needed to do was get loose. And I remember Mike Messina was laughing one day. He said, I've never seen anything like this. You're not taking batting practice, but you learn that when you have your timing right, sometimes your batting cage work or your routine, might take you in a different direction. And sometimes you just have to step back and say, I don't need that. So I used to run out in the outfield with the pitchers, Mike Messina, when they were out in the thing, just to get myself going for the game. But routines are really important. And if you're talking to a young kid, find out what drills that work for you that translates to the game, whether it's soft toss from the front, whether it's tee work to control your body a little bit more and create your timing, whether it's hitting off someone throwing a little harder, whatever those timing mechanisms are for you, get into that, and you fix your slump by that routine. You gain your confidence by that routine, especially when you're not getting on the field. You got to get it someplace. And I evolved over time, but I think the routine is a friend to all big league players.
All right, let's talk about Ripken Baseball. Cal, I would argue that you and your brother Billy have as much influence on youth baseball as anyone in this country. I mean, what you guys are doing is phenomenal to get kids of all ages, all backgrounds involved in baseball. I tip my cap to you. Why did you and Billy start Ripken Baseball?
I have to tell you right now, I'm going like this to my back and I'm going like this to my arm right now. Being the Iron Man, I feel like Plastic Man right now. I think I worked I was too hard on the rowing machine, and I think I did something to my upper back. I got a little on my arm, but I'll work through that for the interview. Billy and I started Ripken Baseball because we had a dad that we thought was the encyclopedia of baseball, and then Dad was able to give us the benefit of his experience and sometimes his knowledge, many times through teaching other players. We witnessed him. He was the batting coach, the hitting coach. Well, they're one and the same. The pitching coach, the catching coach, the infield coach. We didn't have specialty coaches back when my dad was in the minor leagues. He was all of those. And so many times when he was working with the different players, we benefited from that view. And so we realized that we were one of the lucky ones that got a chance to have the dream and go through and know what it feels like to play in Fenway and Yankee and just have a great experience all the way around. And so we realized that only this many of us get a chance to do that, of all the people that want to do that. So we wanted to try to bring an experience down to their level, try to give them a big league experience, what it feels like to play in a ballpark like Fenway. So we have our own Fenway, our own Green Monster, make different dimensions, celebrate different fields. So the game sometimes is played differently in those fields. A power team, obviously would have an advantage in a smaller ballpark, but a speed team might have an advantage in a bigger ballpark, and a defensive team. And we wanted to bring all those sort of experience to the kids. So that was our goal. And I said that we were a little philanthropic, early on, because we just thought the ideas are good, then the business side will come around. And maybe that was the right way to go for us, is that we were so energized by giving the kids and trying to make the kids the best baseball players they could be through our camps and clinics and those things, but through our tournament business, to make them feel like they had a big league experience. And that baseball, there's a lot to love about baseball. Instead of going to a field that has a quad where all the fields are the same and they're all playing and foul balls are coming, over the fence and getting into, give the field its own identity and give the kids their own space in which to enjoy that field. So that was the idea, and that was the motivation for us to do it. And because we realized that we were lucky to have the encyclopedia of baseball as a dad, but all kids don't have, even though sometimes the dads think they're the encyclopedia of baseball, but we really did have one. And we just wanted to give the kids the lessons and also the experience to like we had at the big leagues.
When you were growing up, I understand you played soccer. I've had John Smoltz, Greg Maddox on this show, and we've talked about specialization of sports. They're against it. Where do you stand on kids playing multiple sports? I mean, baseball, very important, but do you believe in development by playing a few different sports?
Oh, for sure. I mean, given the choice, I recommend to every kid when the baseball season's down, put your glove down, pick up a football, pick up a basketball, play soccer, do something else. First of all, there's a wear and tear on your body when you specialize, and maybe we're seeing that sometimes with the pitchers' injuries in the arms and Tommy John surgery earlier and earlier, in the development, that you need to give your arm a chance to rest a little bit. But I think the greatest value was if how other sports helps you develop your athleticism. So you mentioned soccer. I wanted to play football, but my dad was managing the minor leagues, and we didn't get back until after September. Football started August 1. Didn't have a chance to jump in, 6 weeks late. But you could jump into soccer, a few days late. And then what I realized is that you're not using your hands, so your balance and your agility at different angles, at different speeds, and all that kind of stuff is always being affected. So the sheer nature of the sport, you're developing your where your body is at different times at high speed, and how you kind of develop your endurance, your balance, and all those things. So I thought it was good. It developed my lower half. We had a coach that if we weren't doing well, he loved to run hills. And so we ran hills a lot, and you develop strength in your lower body. And the benefit, I love basketball. Basketball probably is my favorite of all sports, maybe even including baseball, is that if you think about it, you're developing quick feet. You're moving fast. You don't know which direction you're going to go. There were some movements in there that I always loved, how playing basketball and getting in basketball shape, how it made your legs feel for baseball. You had a more of an explosive sort of feel. Maybe it was like 2.5 hours of plyometrics that you were running around doing. So I'm a big advocate for kids playing all sports, because as you have to make a decision when you start to specialize, if you delay that a little bit longer, you're going to develop your athleticism. You're going to be a better athlete for the sport that you choose. And so that's what I feel. But on the same token, witnessing, there are some kids that just love baseball. They don't want to play anything else. And they can play baseball 365 days a year. And I'm okay with that, as long as it comes from them. Not if you look at parents and saying, okay, I'm doing this for your own good. I'm enrolling you in this, and I'm doing this, and you're practicing here. I've had a parent tell me, we treat baseball just like we treat homework. They have so many hours of homework and they have so many hours of baseball each and every night. And I was kind of thinking, what does your kid feel about that? And he says, well, he doesn't like it a whole lot, but he'll thank me someday. If that's the case, you're kind of taking the joy out of the sport. And if you really have a talented kid, he needs to actually have that joy inside to push him through the more challenging times when your parents are not there. And so I'm open-minded to people playing year-round baseball, but I am an advocate. I see the value in my own life of playing other sports, learning other sports, and how that affects your athleticism overall.
One of the other ways you're honoring your dad is the Cal Ripken Sr. Foundation. Cal, you're doing such amazing work making baseball accessible to underprivileged areas. I saw you just open your 500th STEM center. Maybe you can talk about the Cal Ripken Sr. Foundation and this legacy that it's leaving, not just for your dad, but for you and your brother, Billy.
Yeah, for sure. And the idea was born out of, we lost Dad at 63 years old, to lung cancer. And I mean, I'm 63 right now, and I'll turn 64 later this summer. And we always thought that we just lost him. And to me personally, it was like your safety net was gone. If everything had happened, you could always go to your dad to help fix things or help you think through things. And then all of a sudden you didn't have him. So Billy and I were struggling with that. And we started to think, how do we capture Dad's legacy? What was Dad's life all about? And professionally, he wanted to be a big league player, but he got hurt. And then he went into the minor leagues, and then his job was to help talented kids or young people develop their baseball skills and get to the big leagues. So he always developed kids, but he also used baseball to go around to other areas. Sometimes he did these free clinics, and I went along with him quite a few times. And for a kid, it's kind of boring to sit through someone talking about things instead of you being able a chance to do it. But Dad did that, and I think he was trying to reach kids. And I believe, and I'm just surmising right now, is that Dad lost his dad when he was 10, into a car accident, and he had to become the man of the house at an early age. And I think he always had a special place for someone that didn't have that male influence in their lives. And so he used baseball to go into these environments, get them excited about the sport of baseball. But really, he was trying to give them other options, or to show that this is what the value of sports can do for you. And so we decided to start a foundation with that in mind, and try to reach kids, kids that had more challenges than most, and try to reach them through sport and give them those sort of options. And along the way, we matched mentors with those kids, which benefited the mentors and the kids. We created programs. Heck, we even got into building these beautiful fields. They're called youth development parks, because we see those places as a outdoor classroom. And we build them, many of them, in the theme of a baseball ballpark. They're turf. They cost a lot of money. They're really nice. They stay nice for a long time. But we don't care if you play baseball on them or not, as long as you use them, for whatever purposes that you want. And we've had really good success, and that success lent us to doing what are the other needs that we can help with this group of kids. And science, technology, engineering, and math, came up as an idea. One of our board members had the idea. We put a pilot program together. It was very successful, and then all of a sudden there's this huge outpouring and the need for these centers. And we realized we were pretty good at putting those together. And so we just celebrated our 500th one. Blows me away. But when you're sitting in a classroom, now I wasn't good at science. I was really good at math though. But to see the kids tinker with these kits, and then be exposed to the different programming that goes on, and programming a robot or putting together circuits. When they start to do that, the eyes get big, almost like when you first learn how to play baseball. You teach some kid how to hit, he has success hitting the first time, or hits it on the good part of the bat, and you've helped him do that, and he sees a joy in it. So I'm a big advocate for exposing kids to all kinds of stuff, and find out what they love and what their aptitude is, and then have them follow that. So the foundation has been it's been very good for Billy and I. But it really was designed to bring tribute to Dad's legacy, which it does. But I think we're able to help kids, and it makes you feel really, really good when you, and we've been doing this long enough where you see people that have gone through and graduated some of our programs, and then went on to have a really successful life. We started college scholarships, because we first started to think, how many kids can we help? And then we said, okay, we got this many kids that we can help. How deep can we help them? And little things when you're a parent, and then your child gets to the point where they're going to go on a job interview, then you're advising them how to go on a job interview. But many of the kids that we help don't have that sort of support. And then so you start to think, okay, we need to step in and start to help them not only get through high school, help them get to college, but then after college, or when you're looking for a job, how do you help them with some small things? How do you dress for it? How do you speak in it? How do you build a resume? All those things have been pretty gratifying, and all those things are things that byproducts of just the desire to want to help kids.
Amazing. You're just doing amazing work. You should be very, very proud. Let's talk about Unrivaled Sports. You recently formed a partnership with Josh Harris, David Blitzer, to form Unrivaled Sports. Tell our listeners what that partnership's going to do.
Well, I met David Blitzer a long time ago. I can't, more than 10 years ago. And I was asking a little bit for his advice about business and all that kind of stuff, because when you do have success in a sport, sometimes you're afforded those opportunities to ask really successful people, for help or for guidance. And that was my sort of MO. And he was going through the age where his kids were going through sports, and we had that in common. And then years later, they started getting into youth sports. And so we came back together when they bought All-Star Village. and we were talking to them about possibly running the All-Star Village. And then we started looking at what our goals were, and we said, how about we do this together? And I wasn't really thinking about that at all. I was thinking, okay, we're chugging along. We built a pretty good model now, and we'll get there. But then all of a sudden you realize that you can get there much faster and help way more kids and start to grow across the country when you have the money assets that they bring to the table. Is that it used to be you have a good idea, you want to work the good idea, then you convince somebody else that it's a really good idea and do that. And then you got to say, okay, now how do we raise the money? And then in different challenges were different complexes. But now it seems like you still got to give a really good idea. And if you have a really good idea, you need to make sure that you sell that idea. But as soon as you get approval for the idea, then the money is not it's not nearly the issue. And it makes you feel like I'd rather be a small part of a much bigger pie and help way more kids than be a big part of a smaller pie and then kind of do it on a slower basis. And maybe it had something to do with my age. That at this point you're thinking, when you're just out of baseball at 41, you think you still got your full business life ahead of you. And when you're 20, you feel like you got your whole life ahead of you. And then now when you reach that 60 plateau, or right around there, you start to think, well, I don't have the same time yet. How do I speed this up? So the chance to expand and help more kids, and the ability to go out and acquire different businesses now to add to what you've accomplished was really appealing to Billy and I, and we couldn't be happier with Josh and David. They're the perfect partners to have.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what that partnership does. You're an executive producer now with MoonBall Media. You're going to be doing a series that explores iconic feats in sports. The first episode is going to be, really examining your streak. How does it feel to be an executive producer?
Go figure, huh? What opportunities that you get. But the concept is really great. Unbreakable records, those sorts of things. And the idea that the streak or the consecutive game streak by itself is an unbreakable record. I think we're going to explore in that first episode, the one we're going to do, is actually looking at the 5 years of playing every inning of the streak. And because a lot of people don't really know about that. And that streak was ended, the 5 years, playing 5 years of every inning, was ended by my dad, who took me out of the game in Toronto. Our team gave up 10 home runs to the Blue Jays one night. We were getting beat 20-something to whatever. And my dad sat me down and said, how do you feel about coming out of the inning? And I said, how do you feel? And he goes, I think it'd be good for you. And I said, okay. But we're going to explore that a little bit more, and really with the value of, what motivated me to do that. And when I got taken out, I was kind of torn with whether it was the right decision or not at the time. So I picked up a legal pad and I wrote about 11 pages just of my thoughts. And wow. So I've never shared that with anybody, and I have it still. And so I think this would be the opportunity to share that, because it gives you a little bit of foreshadowing to the future. That happened in 1987. So still 8 years before the 2021-31 timeframe. And it was pretty insightful when I found it and reread it again. There's a couple comical things in there that I say too that would be fun to explore. But I think that's a direction that we're thinking about going on the first one.
Sounds exciting. You've been involved in all these businesses that we've discussed today. Are there any other projects or businesses that you say, I'd really like to try that?
I think that was the problem early on in your business life, is the opportunities were pretty wide and broad, and you felt like you wanted to chase all of them. And the real success that I learned is you got to focus that attention on areas and really zone in so you can do a good job there. At this point in my life, and I was surprised a little bit by this. I mean, the ownership, being part of the ownership group now, I thought it still wouldn't change my life that much. I still maybe get a chance to go out and play golf. I'm kind of slowing down. I'm not saying yes to as many things as I did, but I find myself engaged now, and my wheels are spinning, and I have time to actually do that now. So I think it's not new, although ownership is new and all that kind of stuff, and what your role, how you can explore what your role would be, where you can help the team in many ways. I think my energy is moving towards that direction, not by looking for a new idea.
Let's end with this. I'm making you commissioner of baseball. You can change anything in baseball, good or improve. What do you do?
I don't think I can convince the commissioner. I guess unless I am the commissioner. When they first talked about the speed up rules, stuff like that, I was thinking there's no real place for a clock in baseball. Baseball has its own sort of rhythm, but it did get to a point where there was a lot of dead time that was being wasted. Whether it was too much time out of the batter's box, too much time on the pitcher's mound, walk up music where you'd wait and had long time in between innings. So I think the shot clock, the pitch clock, was a good addition because it shaped the behavior. And I would still argue that baseball was played that way years ago, and it just got to a point where it got slowed down. And so now that's been restored, and I think that's been wonderful. I still don't like the ghost runner on second base. If you're playing in a game and your playoff chances can go down to one game, when you're playing another team and you put somebody on second base, it's a gift. You didn't earn it to second base, even though it's given to both teams. Maybe the team that has a little bit less depth, or that has a little bit less in the bullpen because of the way they've handled it, you have a much better chance to win a game if you're the better team, if you earn your way to second base in extra innings. And so that would be the one thing that I would have them look at. I've come along a little bit with the 2 engagements over to first base. I didn't like that in the begin with, but you watch the application of it. There's a strategy that develops, for the base stealing game, and the base stealing game has come back a little bit. I'm not sure as a result of that. I'm glad that the game looks different from a shift standpoint, but I think that would have taken care of itself over time. You'd realize that wasn't as advantageous as we all thought it was. So I didn't like the making the shift rule mandatory. I think you should be able to play anywhere on the field you want, and whatever advantages you can derive from that, as long as it's in fair territory. So I think the one thing, if I boil it down, maybe the one thing is that if I had one thing to change, I wouldn't put that runner on second base.
Interesting. Well, Cal, you're such an impact to so many people. You have been a role model to many. You've always carried yourself with class and professionalism. Continued success to you with all that you're doing. I'm excited to watch you as co-owner of the Orioles and the impact that you're going to have there. And thanks for joining me on Sports Business Radio.
It's a lot of fun. Thanks for letting me think about my life and think about my career and think about my goals. It's pretty exciting right now, and I'm really energized by it.
Well, you've done it better than anyone I've ever had on this show. So congratulations.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.